Hi, it's Tamlyn van Zyst from Tamlyn Unscripted, and today on our second episode we have Sarah Kennedy. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I've got lots to ask, and I've left it kind of raw, and you can tell us whatever you want us to know. But just a little bit of a background. I actually met through TikTok with you. I don't know if you remember. That's how that relationship started.
Okay. No,
So
I didn't know that that's how you found me. Okay.
Yes. So Sarah's a voiceover artist, but she has, from what I've read, I've did a little bit of snooping as well. And from what I read is that you're into acting and theatre, and that was one of the main things you were doing early before children and things like that. And so there's so much to ask in terms of where you started and where you are now. And so I really appreciate your time because we've never met.
Not in person? No. Yeah.
But we've definitely we've worked together. We did a job together for Youth Solutions last year, so that was good, and it was well received. So thank you so much, Sarah, on that one.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So I'm going to just start with a few things, and I did read that you started at an early age. With, when I say early age, I don't know how early, but earlier on than you are now. But you're in theatre, is that right? Is that
look, I don't do theatre anymore. So that was where So I've been a performer all my life. And before I transitioned to full-time voiceover work, I was a professional actress working mainly in theatre with a little bit of film work as well. So yeah,
and how when was that? Was because you went to university and studied acting as well, is that right?
I did, yeah. I just loved drama as a kid. Did it all through school and high school, and then went on to study a theatre arts degree up at the University of Southern Queensland in Toowoomba, and went just once I graduated, just moved straight into professional acting work. Very blessed to have done that and not sort of stood around scratching my head going, I don't know what to do. So I was very lucky. And I sort of transitioned from uni student to professional actress almost immediately. So very pleased with that outcome.
Did you do that with, because I saw radio commercials as well. Was that a little bit later on after that from the acting side of things in theatre?
Yeah. So I'd been working as a professional theatre actress for a number of years, and I was introduced to the world of voiceover, commercial voiceover, by a fellow actor who we were rehearsing a play together, and he said, "Hey, I've got a gig over the road at the B105 studios in Brisbane, a radio station. Okay. And do you want to come? Do you want to come and just hang out with me while I do it?" And I went, "Oh, yeah, okay." So he introduced me to one of the copywriters at that radio station, and I watched him do his voiceover, and then a couple of weeks later, that copywriter rang me and said, "Hi, I'd love to give you could you come in and record a job?" And I went, "Oh, okay, sure."
Oh, wow.
And that's how it started, really. So probably the first couple of years of my voiceover career were just in radio commercials, so 30-second scripts.
Yeah.
It was a really great way to supplement my theatre income, because as a theatre actor, you are going from job to job, and there are periods where you are not employed. And voiceover work was a really great way to supplement that.
You mentioned films. Was there any specific films that you've been on? Or?
Yeah, look, I've dabbled in a little bit of film work. It was never my favourite medium, so my heart was always in the theatre. But there's a couple of films that one of them did quite well, got itself a bit of a cult status, called All My Friends Are Leaving Brisbane.
Really?
Written by Stephen Vagg and directed by Louise Alston, and it just happened to star an actress by the name of Charlotte Gregg, who happens to be my now sister-in-law. So I married her brother.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess, did you ever think of going into like radio as a radio side of things, like, you know how radio announcers and things like that. Did you ever think about doing anything like that? Like,
No.
was that completely different? Like,
Yeah, no, that would be way too confronting for me. It was
yeah,
suggested to me at one point by a friend of mine, and I ran as far as I could from that suggestion. Yeah, I'm not that great as myself.
yeah,
Give me a script, give me a character, no problem. At least back then,
yeah.
when I was working as a on stage in front
Yeah.
of who knows how many people.
That,
That was never an issue for me. So no, and
that's fair
now,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah. And getting into character, you talk about that. I guess for a lot of the work that you're doing, because I had a look, it's quite diverse on the like from author, like from book to instruction type of, what is it called?
Yeah. So audiobook narrations to eLearning
Yeah,
narration and instructional videos. I do telephone on hold
but
messages.
in gaming as well. Like gaming.
Yeah. A few characters in video games as well. Yeah.
So how do you get yourself into, you talk about character, is there a way that gets you, I mean, I guess it depends on the type of job, but for example, from a e-learning book to a character on a video game, what do you have to prepare to get into that character and do your job?
It's a good question. It's a big question.
Yeah.
I've been performing since I was 10.
Yep.
A lot of what I do now in terms of how I perform a role is happening almost at a subconscious level, because I've been doing it for such a long time.
Experience. Yeah.
I have a method when when I've taken on an audiobook narration job. So there's usually about a 2-week period before I come into the studio to record, and it involves reading the book at least twice. Making heaps of notes, highlighting all the dialogue using a different coloured highlighter for each character, finding images online, searching for images to help me build the picture in my mind. To really set the scene. I also spend quite a bit of time if there are. Especially if there are accents, I need to spend some time working on those accents and finding real life examples that I can use to base my loose interpretation of the accent on. What else do I do? Gosh,
almost like mood boarding it, so then you've got something to live through, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And I need to save it all I need to save all of that stuff in a folder so that I can refer back to it whenever I need to. Once I do start the recording process, character voices. Especially, I need to save a little recording of me speaking as the character, so that if there's like a 3 or a 4 chapter break before they come back again, I know what they sound like. Otherwise, there's I have no idea, and I need that to be consistent, because it will jar.
The flow would have to be.
Yeah. Otherwise, the listeners like, she's changed. That's not how that character sounded the last time we heard him or her, Yeah. And then with video game characters, I don't do a lot of video game work, but you are always given a visual representation of the character. You are also usually given some audio references. So the game development studios will say these are some ideas of what we think the character might sound like, or they'll say we really like the rhythm of this particular speech pattern but not the tone, or they can be really specific about those sorts of things, and then you need to experiment with different options, and I would usually send those options through, and we work together to really find the voice of the character.
Finesse the character of it. Yeah. So do you end up in the mirror doing things? Like how does that work?
Yeah, look, sometimes I do if it's a really physical, because voice acting isn't just about. It's not just about your voice. You've got to use your whole body. You've got to gesticulate. You've got to really. You need to embody the character physically, not just sort of put on an affectation with your voice,
Yeah.
and so if you are embodying the character in a physical way, it's going to come through your voice in a more effortless way.
Yeah.
So mirror work is definitely it's a really clever technique that a lot of voice actors use. Yeah.
And I heard your kids are involved in voice.
They are. My husband is too. If you live in this house, you work in this studio.
So you've all got a different mirror to work from. It was a fight for a mirror.
No, my hubby doesn't do character work as such, although he did get cast as the main character in a video game a couple of years ago, who happened to be 15. My husband's nowhere near 15. He's a bit older than me, so that was hilarious. And the kids
thought that was cool.
No, the kids don't think we're cool at all. No, we're not cool. We're cringe. We're cringe.
Yeah, these days, are you teenagers? Are they?
Yeah,
teenagers?
A couple of them. Yeah. And the 10-year-old being heavily influenced by the older two. So yeah.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I am. I know.
So did they go, I want to do what you do, or how's that happened for them? Like, is it natural? You haven't pushed them obviously into it.
No, and I don't. Look, they've been doing it for a really long time. Ever since they were very little, because little kids sound so cute. When you hear a commercial with a cute little kid who can't even say certain words properly, it's just so adorable. So they've been doing it for a really long time, and money is quite an incentive for them now that they're older. Let's be honest. The first thing that they ask me when I say, hey, would you be interested in auditioning for blah, blah, blah? How much is it?
Yeah.
So hopefully I'm going to get my 10-year-old and my 15-year-old into the booth later today to record an audition for something.
Oh, wow. That's so good.
Yeah, the 10-year-old immediately said, how much is it and how many lines? How much work is it and how much?
Dictating the what?
So
how many takes as well, or what?
I mean, yeah. How long is it going to take? Yeah. They are. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I'm really proud of them for being so pragmatic about it all. Yeah. Because I think in the creative arts, as you probably experience yourself, at some point, there's flattery and there's ego and there's please like me vibes a lot. Yeah. And a lot of people fall into the trap of being swept off their feet by a few compliments and then not paid properly for their work.
Yeah,
so I'm really pleased that my kids are thinking like business people. I don't think that any of them, I'm certainly not pushing them, and I don't think that any of them are going to end up being like me, doing it full time. But gee, it's a great way to make a little bit of extra money.
I know, right?
Fantastic. Yeah.
The same with my daughter. Like she has a passion, and I can see there's definitely what would you call it? The skill set that there's there. Yeah. There's creativity, and so from my point of view as well, I think if you've got something that you're both passionate about, like from a family perspective, it's much easier to teach them some stuff and skills, life skills in terms. I pay her as well, by the way, but an hourly rate, and she's been able to buy. So it's not massive, but she's learning, I guess, the cost of what things are. If you do this much work, then you get paid, and is that how you think that's working for them?
Absolutely. They're only allowed to spend 10% of what they make. I'm pretty strict about that. So they've got some pretty big fat bank accounts
nice.
that they don't have access to. They won't have access to
ETFs
those.
ETFs might be a good idea.
Pardon?
ETFs.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can watch it grow.
Yeah. So and definitely I think understanding money and what's involved in making it and how to grow it and what happens when you spend it on something that maybe you didn't need after all.
Like a game or a skin or
That's
whatever
right.
they call
it. Oh, buyer's regret on Minecraft. We just experienced that a few days ago because the 10-year-old bought something that was actually disposable. It had a lifespan.
Oh no.
And he thought he was going to get to keep it. I don't even know what it was, some sort of asset that he was.
Oh.
And he realized that once he breaks it, that's it.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that
They know how to
terrible?
market, don't they?
It's terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
Poor little
My
thing.
son ended up in that situation when he was a lot younger too. He's 16 now, but he'll still go, do I want, can I get this thing? And I think it was $60 for whatever it was. And my husband always goes, what does it do? How does it work?
Yeah.
Is it going to improve your game?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you really need it?
Yeah.
So he goes through those processes now. And then sometimes you go, no, and you walk away.
That is amazing.
Yeah, but sometimes he does. And we go, oh, well, it's your money.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of when you were, a lot younger, what did you do any like work like that in terms of, whether it was working in a cafe or doing something like that? Did you do any of those type of things? Or
yes.
I mean, I guess the experience is different for our kids than it was for us. Like I worked in a video shop because I love videos. Like back then, they didn't even know what a video shop is.
Yeah. No, I had some part-time jobs. I mean, when I was in high school, I think my very first job was at Hungry Jack's, and I moved on to, I ended up working at a Night Owl. They don't even have those anymore. That's like a 7-Eleven.
What's that? 7-Eleven, is it?
Yeah, it's sort of like a 7-Eleven. So it's a convenience store, open all the time. Yeah, so I worked in there. I had other little jobs before I went to uni. I couldn't work while I was at uni because the course was just too demanding.
Full on, was it?
Yeah, and then just moved straight into theatre work. And my daughter now is working at a fruit and veggie store, and that is really teaching her the value of money, because the hourly rate is nowhere. It just doesn't compare to what she could make here in the studio for an hour. Yeah. So maybe that kids have a slightly skewed kind of vision of what they should be earning or what they're worth out in the real world, because some voiceover gigs are very well paid. And then she has to go and work at the fruit and veggie shop, and she gets really excited when it's a public holiday and she earns, double figures an hour.
Well, that's good, because then they also get people skills too, and I think they lose that from all this gaming or being online and that. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm dealing with a mumbly 14-year-old boy at the moment. Yeah, and we're looking at doing up his resume and getting him a job. Yep. And he has already said, I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to talk to anyone. I said, mate, so that means you want a non-customer facing role?
Yes, you want to pack shelves, mate?
Yeah. Something in the back. So, yeah, got to work on that. Yeah, I think that's fairly typical for the age, though.
I think so. Yeah, this is a bit shy. But in terms of, I guess, you're talking about well paid and things like that. You're an independent voiceover artist.
I am,
and I have watched some of your stuff that you've done and spoken about or raised in there, that you got to know your worth and who you are, as opposed to working for an agent. Is the majority of the people that are voiceover artists now leaning more towards independent as opposed to having an agent?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Tam. I think that there's a huge amount of voiceover artists. Let's just talk about Australia. And I think there's a large number of people who work as voiceover artists either in a part-time capacity or a full-time capacity, meaning it's their only source of income.
Yeah.
Who are not represented by voice talent agents. If you are represented by a talent agent who specializes in voiceover work, so that is their main thing, you're part of, I think, a fairly elite group in this country, and there are probably a lot more people who are making do without agent representation. And I don't think, I banged on about it. I mean, I had agent representation for 17 years. And then come May 2021, it finally dawned on me that I was actually doing just fine without the agent. Once I got set up here in my home studio in 2016, I started looking for ways to other sources of work. Because I wasn't satisfied with the amount of work that I was getting through my agent. And so I started building up my own clients. I started using I call them work portals. So I started finding other ways to get voiceover work online. And then it got to a point, I was keeping a little pie chart just for myself so that I could see how much work I was booking through my agent and how much work I was responsible for booking. And the section that I was booking through my agent was just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah. And it got to about this tiny little slice in May 2021. And I thought, I'll be fine. I just trust myself. And my mental health had suffered quite a lot.
Yep.
Just for a number of reasons. The agent was based in Sydney. I'm in Brisbane. I was never going to probably reach the heights that I had kind of dreamed of reaching with a Sydney-based agent while I was living in Brisbane. Ultimately, that's, I think, what it boiled down to. And so there was I was feeling pretty sorry for myself and doing a lot of comparison and why me, which was just no good. And I decided to just leave. And honestly, the next day I felt so much better, so happy. My husband said, your face has changed.
Yeah. So the weight of everything is just, you're in control, right?
Yeah. So, I put my money where my mouth is. That's how I started saying that, which was I used to bang on about the fact that you don't need an agent, even though I had one. You don't need an agent. And then I finally had to prove it. You don't need an agent, I've proved it, and I have no regrets about going rogue, as I call it, and just managing myself. And I feel so much more in control, and I feel like a business owner now, as opposed to a powerless artist who waits and just doesn't know how to do anything on their own.
Yeah, and you were waiting for something to drop and then waiting for it to
yeah.
So good on you for doing that, because it's a big thing. It's technically you're going into business for yourself, right? And not waiting and relying on anyone else.
Yeah.
So in terms of doing that, were you already starting the ball rolling on doing your own social media? Is that where the traction you talk about online?
Yeah.
So how's it changed you? Because I found you on TikTok, and that was only because I was showing my daughter how TikTok works, and I went, oh my God, she's cool. I like her. So I followed you. Then I do my stalking, and I go and follow you on all the other stuff. And then you reciprocated on some stuff. I'm like, I love her work,
Nice.
So
nice.
And that's just from TikTok. And I've heard about TikTok. What's it called? It's the book thing. It's the book talk. And so I'm going to ask about that as well.
I don't know that. I've never heard of that. That's a new phrase to me. You'll have to educate me.
Yeah, so I was being educated this morning by one of the girls, Amanda, that works for me, and she was saying, I wonder if, because I was saying, what questions would you like to ask if you wanted to be in front of a voiceover artist and ask them something?
Yeah.
And one of the things was, I wonder if she's working and doing anything in book talk. So apparently a lot of people are doing talks about it, analysis about it, and then so there's a lot of authors and a lot of voiceover artists, and they're using that as a way from an author perspective.
Right.
So it might be something to have a look at.
I'll have to have a look at it. Yeah.
I had no idea, like myself. This is Amanda, because she's into books and reads a lot.
Yeah.
And so she's following this, and it looks like it's like almost like shorts or something.
Okay.
So just go tiktok.com and then you slash tag / book talk.
I'll look into it. Thank you.
That's right. There you go. I learned something. We both learned something today.
Honestly, being able to keep up with the changing landscape of what we do is a skill in itself.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So in terms of, like, I talked about TikTok, what things did you start doing for yourself to build up your social media? And was that instant or as a gradual thing when you decided to go out on your own?
Yeah, no, that was gradual, and it had started long before I decided to go rogue. I had built, I'd built myself a Facebook page, an Instagram account a few years prior. I did TikTok for a little while there during COVID. Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know what the exact return on investment is with my time in terms of social media. I know that I reach people, whether or not those people are ever going to be in a position to book me for a voiceover job is, that's a question that I'll never get an answer to. But I think in terms of having a presence on social media and making sure that the lights are on in my virtual house when somebody walks past, I think that's important.
That's it.
Yeah, because everyone has their preferred social media platforms.
That's right.
And so if you look, I'm certainly not on all of them, and I don't have a TikTok account anymore. I sort of shut that. I shut that down sort of 3 months after I started it. It went really nuts there for a little while.
Yeah.
And then I realized mental health.
Yes.
That there was too much noise in my head, and it was all because of TikTok. It was all because I had a video that went quite viral on that platform, and overnight I gained an insane number of followers, which was very exciting and amazing for my ego.
Yeah.
But they were all teenage children, and so none of them were actually going to book me for a VO gig.
No.
But I felt all instant pressure to be creating content every day. Which is not something that I'd ever done before. And I kept up with it for a little while because it was right at the very beginning of COVID and there wasn't much else to do.
That's right.
But there was noise in my head constantly. What am I going to do tomorrow? What's another idea? Just it wasn't a good thing. I've got kids. I've got other things that need to be done in my life, and so I shut that down about 3 months after I started it. And again, the peace, the tranquility, the sense of calm that washed over me. So I don't use all the social media platforms, and I think it's really important not to spread yourself too thin if you are interested in jumping on that train of self-promotion, if that's something that people that are listening to this podcast are interested in doing. I think it's far more effective to just choose even just one and do it really well. If you have the time, 2 or 3, but don't let yourself fall into this trap of feeling like you need to be across every single one of them and that you need to be constantly pumping out content. You've got to save something for yourself. There's a balance.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that because it's almost a full-time job in itself, although it is a full-time job in itself to just manage social and to be able to we need to turn off sometime, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably having scroll checking at night, so then you're really not switching off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hosted a workshop last weekend for people who were interested in voiceovers, and I forgot to take a photo for my social media.
I did see someone take photos. I was like, I had a look.
But I didn't do anything. And I guest tutored at another workshop yesterday. Forgot to take a photo for my social media. So half of my brain is going, you're missing these great opportunities. That could make great content. You should, and then the other half of me is like, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Like I feel those sorts of running those sorts of workshops are actually really draining because you're just giving the whole time to other people. You're downloading all of the information that you have accumulated over your however long your career is, and you're giving to these people nonstop, and it ends, and you've not thought about yourself at all the whole time, and then suddenly you go, I should have used that to create a bit of content, but my bags are like hanging down here. So
did you do a debrief on yourself, like what worked, what didn't work, write it down? So
that is also an exhausting. That I was saying that to my husband this morning when I woke up, because I said I have done nothing but internally debrief since it finished.
Yep.
I've just been thinking exactly what you just said. What went well? What? How do I think I could improve? How could I build on this? What parts of my presentation did people really respond to? Just thinking, how can I build that part of my business? And so even that noise in my head when it was Sunday night. Like I should have been here. I should have been present, not here in the studio. I should have been out there on the couch with my kids and my husband and present. I should have been present with my family, but I wasn't. A lot of what I was thinking about was business, and it just goes back to that thing that we talked about earlier, which is when you're running your own circus, you just never. It's so hard to shut off. Yeah.
Yeah, I just I've as I told you off air, it was last week for me was a burnout. Like I've been working stupid long hours and the debriefing. My husband, poor thing, we have to. At least we've got someone to do that.
Yeah.
But what do you do outside like of that? Do you walk? What do you do to when you can to be present and that what helps you?
Yeah, I have a dog. I have a cavoodle, and I've got to say it was the best. It's the best. He's the best. He was an expensive. I'll admit it. He was an expensive cavoodle. We got him 2 years ago, but I don't. It's the best money we've ever spent. He is amazing. He's the most incredible therapist. He gets walked twice a day, regardless, unless it's raining. He doesn't like walking in the rain, so I still try. I'm like, come on, darling, I've got the umbrella, and he just parks his butt on the ground. And goes, no, I'm not doing this. That's really disappointing because that is my downtime. I leave my phone at home. Usually at least somebody comes with me. Normally my husband, if he's not working, I've got my 10-year-old. If it's not dark, my older child will come. If it's dark, she's not coming. She's scared of the dark, and that's cool because I was scared of the dark until I was in my mid-20s. Even now, sometimes I run through the house late at night because the shadows move when you're walking with the torch. And so it's cool. I get it. I'm not putting pressure on her to do something that makes her feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice way for us all to connect as well as a family.
That's right.
You know, gosh, having that little dog has it has changed our family dynamic in ways I can't even express.
Yeah.
I see the kids, the older two, 14-year-old boy, almost 16-year-old girl. So you can imagine the dynamic between those two.
Yeah.
It can be all sorts of, there's a spectrum there. But having Theo, the dog, means that sometimes they lie on a bed together because Theo is in between them. And they're and they would never, ever lie on a bed together if Theo wasn't there. And there's so much more physical love in this house because of that dog.
Yeah.
It makes them, having Theo there it removes the awkwardness, I guess, of a 14-year-old boy and his 16-year-old sister hanging out together. They can just pretend and convince themselves that they're not actually hanging out together. They're hanging out with the dog.
You know? Well, I've got a cavoodle, Schmiggles.
Beautiful. What a cute name.
Kids named that. So we've had her for about 6 years now, and we got cavoodle because of my daughter was scared of dogs, and we thought, and she's on the spectrum as well, and so having that someone to learn to love, learn to empathize with, learn to do something with, and not be scared, was probably one of the biggest things and best things and expensive things.
Yes.
But worth every cent.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Aren't they the best? They're the best.
Yeah. They're calm too. Like I've heard some out there that can be yappy and that, but no.
Yeah, Knockwood. Ours is amazing, just amazing. Yeah, I belong to a cavoodle Facebook group, and some people are constantly asking for advice about their puppy who's chewing on things. Ours never chewed on. He never chewed on the skirting boards. Never chewed on any chair legs. He's been just fantastic.
It's probably because they're bored, right, and not home. We're home.
Yes, yeah. Well, that was the thing. We were. I work from home. My husband works from home. So Theo, he is very rarely alone. So yeah, we were the ideal family to the breeder. She gave us 10 out of 10. We got 10 out of 10 on our application.
Awesome. That's good. That's so good, and it's good to have like something that's around. Like I'm at home too, right? I feel like someone's home.
Yes. Yeah, there's always there's someone to think about, a bit of company. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I've got other questions too to ask. I always go off on tangents, don't I?
Sorry, that was probably me. I went to Cavoodle Land.
No.
Sorry.
I love doing. I'm going to ask something, and it's interesting. Like as conversation around AI, right?
Okay.
So I don't know if it to me, I don't think it's ever going to take, it's not to that level. I don't think that it will take, we used to think for graphic design, oh my gosh, but they're still far away, I think, anyway. And then the stuff that we use for AI, we use to our advantage, right? To help us with our workflow. What's in your industry? How do you see it working? Because the way it works at the moment, you can tell when definitely,
yeah.
oh my God, it's terrible. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not very well read. I'll just put that out there to start with. I'm not terribly well read in AI and what it's doing and what it's up to, but I can definitely tell you that I've had multiple clients come to me after they've used an AI voice, and their client has said, no, I need it. I can hear the robot. I need it to be a human. And then they come to me, and I give them a human performance, and everybody is happy. So that's an experience that I have fairly regularly. I can also say that I know for a fact that there are absolutely plenty of buyers of voiceovers in whatever genre, audiobook narration as an example, eLearning as another example, who have gone to AI recordings and they're happy with the quality, and off they go on their merry way, and that doesn't particularly worry me. And the reason that doesn't worry me is because I believe there will always be that a tier, just like there's a tier of in voiceovers, a rates ladder. So you've got your really high end top tier rates, and then you've got rates that are not as expensive, all the way down to the bottom where someone only wants to pay $5 for a VO. And unfortunately, there are people out there in the world with microphones who are willing to do that for $5. So good luck to them.
Yeah.
So there's a market for all of those different rungs on the ladder, and I think there's a market for different rungs on the ladder in terms of voice performance.
Yeah.
And even when AI voices get to a point where they are indistinguishable from human voices, which I believe is still a far way off, especially for your more emotional reads.
Oh, gosh,
I don't know that an AI voice, definitely not yet, is ever going to really be able to capture the nuances of the human voice in terms of what I'm doing right now, which is I'm playing with the tempo of my speech. So some of the words that I'm saying are coming out really quickly, and then I'm pausing.
Yep.
And then I'm elongating other words to make my point. And I don't know if an AI program is ever going to be able to do that, So if when you're wanting your performances to be really, really human and emotional.
Yeah.
I think there will always be a market of buyers who want human, because it's bespoke. It will end up being bespoke, and there will always be a market out there for bespoke voiceovers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I'm
not worried. I'm not panicking.
Oh, no,
not at all.
It'd be quite funny to do, like before and afters, but they have the you can have a bit of a joke with some of the voiceover ones, and then your version of it, and showing how it doesn't do its thing. I mean, that'd be funny.
Yeah. Look, I could do that right now, except I wouldn't want. I would need permission from the client to be able to share that before and after, and that I wouldn't probably even.
Could you do your own experiments? On using apps, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I've certainly done that before, even just with people who want to do their own voiceovers. So I've had those sorts of experiences where someone has thought, well, someone told me I have a good voice, so I'm going to record the voiceover, and then they end up finding me and asking me to, and then I've got a couple of side by sides of that, and that's always been that's a really handy marketing tool to use, because there are skills involved in what I do.
It's the breathing as well.
It's not just about having a mic and a heartbeat and being able to speak. There's a lot more to it than than that.
Oh, you do amazing jobs.
Oh, thanks.
And I noticed on your website you talk about Australia and you said overseas market. So in terms of overseas market, how much is there a certain amount of work that you are getting from overseas?
I think the Australian accent, because I very rarely work in any other accent. Audiobooks, that's okay, but I always let my authors know it's not going to be technically perfect. It's going to be a representation of the accent, so that it's more about telling the story, and it's not necessarily about Sarah Kennedy giving the performance of her life. Sarah Kennedy's
that would be exhausting.
One woman show. That's not what it is. I'm serving the text, right?
Yeah.
And so, having said that, back onto answering your question, the Australian accent is becoming more and more accepted. People.
Nice.
I think that we've moved well away from the Crocodile Dundee era, and I think I've had, just in the last 12 months, I've had plenty of bookings from US-based clients who've chosen to go with an Aussie voice over a US accent, so that they can stand out a little bit, so that they can.
I was going to say, is it standing out in front of
Yeah. And I guess that's thanks to all of the marvelous Australian actors that we've exported over there, who are amazing, and getting cast more and more in their native accent, so people's ears are getting more used to hearing it. It's not so jarring anymore,
Yeah. Actually, watching Fall Guy?
I haven't watched it.
Oh, you got to watch it. All these Australians in it, and a lot of it was filmed. I believe is filmed here in Sydney. So it was a really good one to watch. Yeah. But it's weird when you do hear your voice. Like, I've been overseas before, where you've for 6 weeks, and then you hear another Australian, and you go, "Oh my gosh, is that how we sound?" Maybe they're from a different state. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Wow.
But yeah, you're saying that it is getting. That was a few years ago, but that it is getting more. People want it, so it's a good thing.
Good. I'm even recording telephone on hold messages and business telephone IVR systems for UK and US based businesses. So my Australian accent is the first accent that some of their customers are hearing when they call into and that's always very flattering to think that they're
warm and inviting,
willing to go so far away from what most of them probably do sound like. It's great. Go Aussies!
Yay! And in terms of projects that you've worked on the last 12 months, what's the most well-connected one that you loved, passionate about, that you really stood out and enjoyed and want to sing your heart out to say, this is what I did?
I always feel bad when people ask me this question, because there are so many wonderful projects and so many beautiful clients that I get to work with on a sometimes very regular basis. I really like audiobook narration, and I have to say that was sort of my last frontier in terms of genres. So for a very long time, I didn't want anything to do with audiobook narration, because I saw it as being incredibly laborious, and the editing and the mastering of those files was just not something that ever interested me. Having said that, I still don't edit and I still don't master, so I outsource that part of the job. So
good.
Yeah, go the outsourcing. But as far as it being a laborious process, I could not have been more wrong. It is the most luxurious job that I'm ever lucky enough to book when I book an audiobook narration. Yep. I'll admit they're not very well paid, but they are so creatively satisfying to this little actress, because I am still a performer at heart. These days I perform in this little booth, usually with nobody watching.
Yeah.
And I'm far more comfortable doing that now. I would never ever. I don't think I'd ever set foot on a stage and play a character again, even if you wanted to pay me $1 million. No thanks. That's way outside of my comfort zone these days. But the the performing is still absolutely in my DNA, and being able to tell a story and really immerse myself in that story so that I can make people feel things.
You want them to be like they're imagining they're there, eh?
Yeah.
That would be
so. Any of the audiobooks that I've had the pleasure of narrating over the last 12 months, they're definitely right up there.
So they're fiction, non-fiction, bit of mix.
A mix, but what I'm really talking about are the non-fiction books, because they're the ones that have you've got characters and you can do things, you can go places emotionally. I recorded an autobiography for a young woman with cerebral palsy who wasn't able to record the book herself, so it was 300,000 words. It was a big book. And hats off to this absolute legend for writing this book. Just amazing.
Oh, wow.
And that was an incredible experience for me.
And how long did it take her to write her book, out of interest? I was just curious.
Years.
Was it something that she...
Years. She had she had someone sit and help her, and I got to meet Beck. We met for coffee.
Yeah.
And that was an incredibly satisfying experience. I wasn't sure if I was going to do that project because I felt so much pressure. I hadn't been asked. I've never been asked to do an autobiography before, and also she's still alive. So
you want to do it justice.
Oh my goodness,
too, right?
what an incredible honor and a privilege, but also the burden of responsibility that I felt to do her work justice was quite overwhelming. So, I treaded very carefully when I was reading excerpts of her manuscript before I had decided whether or not I was going to commit to it.
No, fair enough.
And then I decided, no, I said, she's chosen me. The least I can do is give it everything I've got. And I did. Yeah. And I was I'm getting emotional. I was very proud of that one.
Yeah. And is it okay to share who it is and where the book is?
Yes.
So
her name is Rebecca Hempstead, and the book is titled "There Have to Be Some Perks," and that's an in-joke about disability parking spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got a wicked sense of humor.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's amazing. She is amazing, and I was very lucky to have met her, and just privileged to been the person that she chose to bring that book to life.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did she have a launch or anything like that, or how did?
No, it was a very soft launch. But if people are interested in finding that book, all they would have to do is Google "There Have to Be Some Perks" audiobook by Rebecca Hempstead. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll put it out on the show notes when I get to that point. Actually, that's a good point. I could have a drink of water.
I'm just doing that so that I stop crying.
Tim Tam. There you go.
Nice.
My husband's name's Tim. There you
go.
Nice.
That's awesome.
We fight for the cups, no, don't you?
That's so great.
So, that's a beautiful, when there's something connected and it's not really about the money, the it becomes a different part of it, doesn't it? Aspect of it. Like I have for a few jobs I've done, I do give back to some extent, and like, for example, the youth solutions one, that, like, wanting to find and narrate a story, like create a narrative around something. So having that connection with people that can tell us out there telling that story, that's amazing.
It's a different kind of reward, and I think that allowing yourself to be open to having those other rewards that are not financial, they can satisfy you in ways that the $10,000 jobs are never going to. They're never going to satisfy your heart the way that those sorts of projects will.
Yeah. And I guess what I was going to ask is around what did I write? I wrote a few things in terms of I noticed you're also doing like consulting and stuff like that. Is that to help budding voiceover artists? Is that something? Is that a lot of younger people looking for it? Is it older people? Someone looking for a different change of career? What does that look like?
Anyone at any stage of their career. I started offering that service because I was constantly being asked, can I have some time with you? Which for a number of years I was happy to give. And then it just got to a point where I thought, I actually think that I might be able to monetize this. And so I still am not charging what I could charge. I'm still making it affordable and accessible. And I work with people at the very start of their VO journey. I also work with people who are years into it. I work with people who are exploring these other work portals that I referred to earlier. So they're very much used to the agent talent relationship, and perhaps coming to a point in their career where that is no longer able to provide them with enough income, and so they're interested in exploring some of these other work portals.
Okay.
And so I'm more than happy to talk them through that. I think because I am so fiercely independent these days, that's one of the reasons I started offering these consultations, was to help people realize that it's all in them, and it's all about putting in the time, educating themselves, giving themselves the opportunities to learn and grow and develop their skills, whether they're doing that on their own or with a coach or through classes. That no one is going to stop them from doing this. And that they don't need permission. You don't need permission. And by that, what I mean is you don't need an agent to say, yes, you're good enough, I'll represent you. You can do it regardless. All you really need.
Been like that back in the day, like when earlier on before online stuff, that was probably the feeling people.
I think still, can make the cut. I think still a lot of people are of the mindset that if having an agent validates you to a certain extent. Having someone in a position of authority bestow upon you a badge that says you're good enough. You're good enough. We will represent you. So you've now got the card. You're now, I think a lot of people are kind of stuck in that mindset that it's a goal that one must achieve. And while it's absolutely a totally valid goal for anyone who wants that, it doesn't necessarily just because you haven't achieved it doesn't mean that you can't see yourself as a fully valid, totally legitimate person who works in the industry. And that goes for not just my little niche line of work, but so many other lines of creative work where we are constantly seeking validation from other people.
Do you think that's, I don't know if this is a touchy point to talk about, but do you think it's more a female thing versus a male thing, that side of things? Because I find, I think it's more a female thing as well. Like always, even from and I'm being raw here, like, well, either it's validation or do I think I'm good enough? All those things happen. And more probably as you get older, you question things as well in a different way. Do you see it?
I absolutely 100% do. Yes. And I'll tell you why I tell you why I agree with you so strongly. It's because of an e-learning job that I recorded a few months ago about women in business. And I don't have the script in front of me, can't quote the figures verbatim, but I was quite floored when I was reading this script about the statistics and percentages of men who overestimate their skill set. They overestimate when they're going for a business loan. They overestimate the success. Whereas women are far more likely to underestimate their skill set, to talk themselves down, to be far more, conservative in their projections of where the business might go in the next 12 months or 5 years. Whereas men are far more likely to have these overinflated projections of things. So, Yes, 100%. Yeah,
is that to do with for blokes that you've read this? Is it because of a certain thing in there that's been taught, or it just happens in their chemical balance? I don't know. Like, what did they say why?
I'm
Or
not an
just
expert on the. I'm not an expert on the topic, but so I'll say that. And now I have to tread very carefully about how I answer your question.
But you
But
know
I
what
think,
I'm saying?
I think it's still a man's world. There's centuries of backstory that you need to consider in order to answer that question. And I'm not the person to answer that question. But I can tell you, as a business owner, as a person who writes to clients and does up quotes, and uses email as a form of, a very major form of communication in my business.
Yep.
I felt a colossal shift a couple of years ago when I took out all the flowery feminine language and I started writing more like a man. To be perfectly honest, I was far more firm. I stopped asking questions at the end of my emails like, "Is that okay?"
Oh yeah. That language, around language is important.
Yeah, and I, at the time, the change in the way that the way that clients and potential clients started treating me was instant. It was instant. There was almost this "yes, sir" kind of response a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Thanks for emailing. Yeah, these are the deliverables, and this is my rate. Let me know if you have any questions.
Perfect.
Booked it and emailed back. Thanks very much. When can we start?
Yep. It makes a difference, actually.
Amazing.
The language in it, because you're assertive.
Yeah.
It gains credibility that you know exactly what you're after or what you require.
Yeah.
But that comes with the experience and learning from it and getting, I've done a lot of courses, from sales courses to, seeing a psychologist to all sorts of things, and always take that 1% from somewhere and try and mold it to help myself. Is that something that happened as well from that obviously that mindset and that language twist? What made you do that? Was it something you heard, or is it something someone said something to you, or you went through this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know why I started. Look, I could have been in a particularly bad mood that week. That happens. Maybe I'd had to deal with a client that had disappointed me in ways no one ever had before, and I was just sick of it. Quite likely.
But I guess language is important. So if we were going to talk to people out there, it doesn't matter if you own a business or not. It's the way your mind, for me, our mindset, how we talk to ourselves, how we just talk to others, how we write, and having the right people around you to make sure that the mindset's, I guess, positive. I mean, being around people, friends, and things like that. Do you find that as well, being in the right circles as
definitely
helps?
Yeah, absolutely. My husband is a saint. The number of hours that he has had to listen to me talk about things, and the online community for me, I find, is incredibly helpful because it's a lonely business. What we do, it's very isolated. You go from job to job, client to client. You don't really have a regular permanent person to bounce off unless you're lucky enough to have a partner who is willing to listen to you.
Yeah.
And my online community, my different Facebook groups and other forums that I use to bounce ideas off, or or vent. If I've had a particularly negative experience, those things are absolutely so imperative to me in terms of taking care of my mental health. I also am quite open to, on my social media, my LinkedIn. I very much enjoy oversharing on LinkedIn about because I don't believe in that toxic kind of only sharing the wins that some people choose to do. I just personally don't think that would work for me, because if I have a loss, it means I have nothing to post. It means I have to go dark. I have to go dark until I'm feeling better. So I'd much rather just be honest, because I'm sure that my honesty is also something that other people appreciate.
Well, it creates authenticity in terms of who you are as a person and how you feel. And we're all, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't show that side of things. I probably, for me personally, I maybe don't share as much, but when I'm in front of someone, blah, it comes out, full person. But I'm starting to want to do that. I want to share, be true in terms of that helps others out there, right?
Absolutely.
So that's so that's
absolutely.
why this podcast is coming.
I think we're all human, and we're so disconnected from each other these days, you know, compared to 20 years ago, for instance. I think that I'm definitely part of the warts and all brigade in terms of what I share, and I don't necessarily learn a whole lot from the successes that I experience. My learning happens from my mistakes and my failures. And so that sort of content for me is so much more valuable to share to people who potentially are following me because they are either interested in what I do or interested in doing what I do. If I can help people avoid some of the pitfalls that I've experienced, you know, then that makes me feel good. It makes me feel like a nice person instead of not keeping my mouth shut and not telling people about that, and then watching them perhaps have the same experience. You know, that's
that's so good to be able to do that, and you've got that experience to be able to share that, and so how cool is that? So have you got plans for anything coming up soon, like that's happening in your workspace?
Well, nothing terribly exciting. I've got an e-learning module I need to record today, and I've got a 60-second what would you call that? A 60-second introductory video for a marketing company that I'll also be recording. I've got to record my 2 kids for the audition that I mentioned earlier, and then I need to vacate the booth because my husband has a job that he needs to record. So that's what's happening today.
And you've been very kind of spending your time with me. I really appreciate it, Sarah. And it's just, I mean, I would love to learn more from you. You've got so much to share out there. So thanks for putting it out there. You know what I mean? Online.
Thank you.
It's nice.
Thanks for having a chat with me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking me some questions. And
I did put you on the spot a bit. Sorry.
No, it was nice. It was nice. I don't. I think this is only the second podcast interview. Oh no, I've done one for an audiobook, so I'm not particularly experienced with podcast interviews, and I don't necessarily look at myself as being a great interviewee. But this was very easy. So well done.
Good. And we both, I'm a newbie too, so there you go.
Yay!
Thank you so much. And I'll put some details around Sarah and how you can connect with her as well. So thank you.